Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on the Seafood Matters podcast. Today, I'm pleased to welcome back David Stevens, skipper of the Crystal Sea, fishing out of Newlyn. Last week, I spoke to Mark and Simon from Assured Marine, the manufacturers of propeller coatings. Today, I'm speaking to David, the man turning the shafts. Because in fishing, claims don't matter, but results do. If a propeller coatings improves efficiency, reduces fouling, or saves fuel, that shows up in the books. Or if it doesn't, it quietly disappears. So let's hear from the man who actually using it. Welcome back to Seafood Matters, David.
Yeah, hi Jim. Good to see you again, and good to be back.
Thank you. Great to have you back again. David, tell us, our listeners, about you've had a fairly glittering career, different things you're involved with.
Yeah, Jim. Me and my brother Alec, we're working the trawler still, the 25-meter boat, Crystal Sea. We like to invest in modern technology and things that are going to benefit the business. And we've done that with the science in the past. We've done that with the business itself. Investing in a new vessel, and we just try and continue to do that anywhere we can save money. That is going to be a bonus for the business. That's what we're always trying to achieve. We've been focusing on where we can save money, and fuel is by far our biggest cost. So we've been really focusing on how we can sort of lessen that.
You yourself are involved. Are you still cheer in the Fishing into the Future?
Yeah, still very much involved in Fishing in the Future, and I'm really pleased to say it's going great. We've had 3 FREP events this year. That's on the back of the 3 we had last year. So the team are just doing great, really, really well. But one thing I find with the Fishing in the Future, meeting lots of different fishermen and lots of different scientists and managers, you're learning all the time. It's a really good place to really gather ideas, and other people are trialing things, and if they sound good, you get to have a go at it yourself. So I work with Adrian Bartlett, as you know. He was very much involved with Fishing in the Future, and I still got a good relationship with Adrian. He's a friend of mine, and that's really how we ended up going down the road of the propeller coating, because we had the Eco Pro build about, and he knows that we and Alec are keen to maintain efficiencies, and we're always willing to trial something. So he put me in touch with Mark at the Assured propeller coating.
Dave, before we start, I've spoken a lot about the Octopus bloom, and in a recent podcast with Bryce Stewart, who's done a big review on it, I've heard how it's affected pots and things like that. Is it affecting your fishing?
Yeah, it is. We don't see a huge amount of octopus. We might get maybe 3 or 4 octopus, maybe a basket of octopus in their nets at one time. They seem to like going in pots. So we're not seeing them in the numbers like that. But I suppose the way it's affected, it hasn't so much affected the whitefish that we've noticed yet, but definitely crab fishing. This time of year we wouldn't see a lot of crabs anyway. Maybe a sort of what we call a bongo, 50 kilos for your trip. But we last few weeks we've hardly seen a crab, and I can only hope either they're hiding, buried up in the sand and hiding, or we've got a big problem with the crab fishery. The only thing I can say is, if we do get a crab in the net, a few weeks ago we were seeing the odd crab or two, and you get the shell come up. It looks like a perfectly normal crab, and when you go to pick it up, it's just nothing. It's light as a feather, and you turn it over on the undershell side, there'll be a hole in it, and the octopus that's obviously in our net have got hold of the crab, and like an alien life form, they've injected it, whatever they do, and they sucked all of the meat and everything out of it. There's nothing in it. It's like a cast shell.
Wow.
Yeah, they are weird things. They go around the deck like an alien life form. I can imagine. Me and the crew were saying, you can imagine the film Alien was based on what these these things act like, they sort of move across the deck really quite quickly when they want to, changing color constantly. Matching any. You put them on like a silver surface, they'll go silver. You put them on a white surface, they'll go white. A red surface, you can move them about and they'll just change color. They're
Uh-huh.
clever, very clever animals.
And is it through time? Is it changing any? Is it taking off? Are they taking off or disappearing? Or are they? I wondered from what I've heard, quite a few boats are successfully catching a lot of them and doing well. And I just wonder, is it reasonable to think we could fish them out?
I don't know about fishing about that. They're a bloom. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you could just go out and just fish every one of them. I don't think you can do it. I mean, they've come from nothing to being everywhere for the crabbers. And you can only hope, I suppose the only hope for the industry is this isn't a one-off, that this does become established, because if they've eaten out all of the shellfish stocks, then those vessels haven't got anything to go to beyond this for a few years. So we can only hope that they keep coming. Apparently, I think according to Bryce, they have like a couple of year life cycle. They're not catching them in the numbers that they were catching them, so they're not bunching quite as much as they were. They seem to be spread out more now. Whether they're spread out because they're looking for food or what, I don't know. But they're down in the area where I work, around where I work now. The crabbers are just working about 10 or 15 miles to the south of me at the moment. But I don't think the catches are quite as high. So it'll be interesting what happens the next few months, whether they
Okay.
continue to catch them or not.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, going on to the subject, tell us about the Crystal Sea. They have the size, type, gear type, typical grounds, and working pattern.
Well, we try to do 6-day trips generally, and we're working twin rig gear. We work 180 foot ropes on each net, and then we have quite long sweep bridles there. We try and get around about 600 feet between the trawl doors. We work Tiger on trawl doors at the moment, Type 21s. Generally going, we're burning, before all of the fuel saving equipment we have aboard a boat, we used to be around about 1850 litres a day. And then since we fitted the Eco Botus, we've saving around about sort of 8% with that. So we've took that fuel literage down to around 1,700 litres a day. And we're saving more with as far as I can see so far, with the coating, which is, I didn't think we'd do, but it is measurable.
That's interesting. What made you look at coating your propeller in the first place?
Well, Adrian Bartlett of Ecomodas put me in touch with Mark, and Mark was looking for, to trial it on fishing vessels, because it was something they had done for, I think he was saying that for yachts and high performance vessels like speedboats in the racing world. And he thought, well, there's no reason why it wouldn't work on, larger, more clumsy vessels like fishing boats. So he put me in touch with him, and I was just told to, Mark's going to come. I asked a little bit about it, but I just trusted Adrian because, he's in that world of looking at, these techniques to save fuel. Adrian, Mark offered to come and do the coating, as a trial. Just I cleaned my propeller up as clean as I could get it, and he'd come down and put it all together. And I didn't really know anything beyond that, other than that Adrian had organised it. So I was like, well, I wouldn't say I was skeptical, but I was, let's give it a go. Why not? So I got my propeller all cleaned up, and it was looking all nice and shiny. Because generally my propeller ends up with, it's not hanging with weed, but it'll have a sheen of weed on it that, if you run your nail down it, you'd be able to put a scratch mark in it. So it's heavy enough of weed, but because it's always turning, it never gets fully coated. So I give it a good jet spraying up, and then I got the sand around, sounded it all up. It was like new it was. I was quite pleased with my effort. It took me all day, but I did it. And then the next day, Mark came, and great guy, really good to talk to, and I learned an enormous amount about chemical engineering because he's been in the world of chemical engineering. And this was just something, it's a passion of his. I mean, I think you've spoken to him, so he's probably took you through that. And you could really see that come out. He'd spent his life in chemical engineering. He earned his living there, and I think he's just looking to sort of give. He's obviously got an extremely good chemical-minded brain. He really knows what he's doing, and he came with these pots in like beakers and stuff, and he was mixing it. While I was chatting away, he was telling me all about his career and all about chemistry and stuff, which is fascinating. And he just made it up, and then he applied it on. I mean, I asked what he was doing along the way, and he said, well, basically he's making a polymer. So he made it, and he put it on in several coats in several stages, and then after he'd finished doing this, it took maybe an hour and a half, something like that, to do the mix. 2 hours, was it? Something like that. It was bready, and it's strange. I have to admit, when it went on, I was like, well, I wasn't expecting that. It wasn't like a varnish. It looked like a varnish, but it wasn't. You could, by the time it had finished, you could say, push it, you would give it a little nudge, and then it would sort of go back to its original form. So it was quite pliable. But he assured me that this would make the propeller more slippery, cut through the water easier, and that it has a long life. So that was what we did at the slip. And after I finished at the slip, it was time to go away and see if it worked.
One of the things that fascinated me with the chat with Mark, mind he has and the brain he has, but to go from the mouth to a propeller at sea, he's talking about his mouth, the similarities. I don't know how anybody could take similarities between what goes on in our mouths and what goes on in the sea.
Yeah, he was great. I likened him to the guy from Breaking Bad. It was he's concocting these chemicals, and I think he could do anything. He really could, and it was really interesting. But that's what he does. He's a chemist. But he assured me that the process that he had put together, it wouldn't be very difficult for him to teach. It didn't look overly difficult for me. I mean, if it was numbered, in pots, and then you just had a little prep sheet, I'm sure that anyone could mix that. Anyone who knew about painting, we've got plenty of great guys who know about painting boats and mixing paint. I think they'll be more than capable of mixing this. I think that's the plan.
Wow. And were you obviously before this? You weren't coming at it with problems you would experience with fouling, or that was it, or is it more, as you said, to just give it a go?
Yeah, it's more give it a go because obviously, we take the boat. We only take the boat out of the water once a year because it's very difficult to take the boat out of the water down here. We're not as well equipped as Scotland, where they can take the boat out of the water on any tide. We're very tidal down here, and the slips are really full. There's not we don't have a lot of slip capacity at all. So it's something me and Ali only do every year. And mainly, our main effort is to get the bottom clean, get the coolers clean. Really important, keep the engines cool, and obviously everything makes a difference with efficiency. Clean the bottom, you'd be saving 3 or 4 litres an hour. And I never really thought, does the propeller make a difference? And Mark said it will. Would a sheen of weed make a difference on it? I didn't know, I have to say. It was one of them, well, it's worth giving a go. We all know a very clean propeller would be, efficient, but does it create more grip? Because trawling, towing vessels are about grip. And I did wonder whether it would make a difference, but we certainly found out within the first week. It was quite, he was like, is this real? And I didn't say anything. I said to Alex, I said, when you go to sea next week, just you tell me if it's any different. Because I had the first trip back, and what I was finding was sometimes we'll steam 10 or 15 minutes between grounds. We're just lifting tow and getting the boat lined up for the next tow. And we do that. We put the foot rope on the rail back aft each side, and we just steam with the stockings out over the stern. So you're not steaming fully efficiently because you've got drag, but not full drag that you'd have when you're towing. And we only steam for 10 or 15 minutes, so it's just easy to leave them out. And I've never seen the boat do 8 knots with the with the stockings in the water. We generally about 6.97 knots, about same revs, 1300 revs on the engine, and we're doing 8 knots. And I was like, this must be more tide, or must be a bit of flow in the water, pushing us along. So I said to Alec what had happened, and I said, just see if you notice any difference. And he did. He said, yeah. He said, because he does pretty much the same as I do when we're at sea. And he said, yeah, we're like a knot faster. And then when we were steaming in, it wasn't so noticeable without the drag. We're definitely half a knot more steaming speed. And we've maintained that still. We're 6 months or more now since I was at the slip. And we're still maintaining that efficiency. So I wasn't expecting that at all. But we had to measure the fuel performance. We had a few weeks of quite poor weather, not long after we'd done the coating through September. And I said to Mark, I said, I think there's a difference, but I said I can't measure it poor weather because I'm using more fuel to try and push through the weather. So it's a hard time to know. So we left it 2 or 3 months, and we had a finer spell for a few weeks in October, I think it was. And I definitely seen a difference in the fuel consumption. We measured it over a few trips, because we just divide our time at sea in hours by what we've taken. And if you do that over a few trips compared to what it was before, we quite regularly do this. And I'd say to anyone who, if you're going to trial something like the Ecomotis or the polymer on the prop, just make sure you get a few fine trips together before you do anything, so you know what your average fuel usage is per day over a trip, and then you've got a benchmark to measure from.
Obviously, I'm not a fisherman with the experience that you have, Dave, but one of the things that did really surprise me for the coating it's more important on the prop than the hull. Now, when you think of all the plates and that, the amount of area it's taken up and it's in the water, and I've seen boats, maybe I'm sure you've got it down there, boats that have maybe been tied up for a few weeks for some reason, and there's a growth on their hulls. I've seen actually hanging, and just what you were saying that you found with propeller, when you would put out your finger and see a mark, maybe they would get pressure washers and things like that to clean it. Obviously, maybe I'm not got an engineering mind, but to think that it's more important to get that coating on the prop than the hull, I thought was amazing.
Yeah, Mark would know, but I mean, I don't think it would be. I think the propellers, we just, it's the moving part, isn't it? And I think that's where you're just going to, for the amount of coverage, you're going to gain the most gain. I dare say if you put it right across the hull, you would get a gain, but that's an awful lot of polymer. That would probably cost a lot of money to do that. I can imagine them doing it on speedboats or yachts. But that's where he's probably got his knowledge from, because he's done it with speedboats and yachts, and definitely with speedboats. So he's been coating everything, I would have thought, on a speedboat. But then he's probably done experiments where he's just done the propellers and found that it was just more efficient to do the propellers.
And who applied the coating? Was it a yard manufacturer or yourself?
No, it was Mark himself, and the yard was extremely interested. Paul Toms was, very keen. He was looking at it because Paul also races yachts, and he was thinking, "There's a bit left over. Can you pop it on my yacht?" So yeah, he was really interested in it. But I think Mark is took the right approach, where he can't be all over the country doing this, but every yard has its paint team, and he doesn't see that it's a big leap for them to learn how to do it. He'll sell the products to the people who will be applying it, and they'll be applying it. So I think he'll keep a fair bit of oversight on it. We're coming out of the water hopefully in April at some point for a quick sort of splash and dash, because I'm going to try to push the boat on to September this year for the full paint up. So I've got to come out of the water at some point. So it'll be interesting to see how the polymers, how it's got on, But I've got a boat camera, an underwater camera, looking at the propeller, but that's for other reasons. That's for, in case we pick something up. So at the moment, obviously my propeller was gleaming when I left the yard, but I think it's in better condition than it otherwise would be. The propeller's still looking goldy colour, so I think by now we would have seen it looking more green with the weed by now.
Wow, yeah. And how straightforward was the preparation?
Well, he was mixing it in front of me. He would say pot 1 and 2 together, and there was a different amount in one pot than the other, and then he'd pour it into a little tub, and then we'd just brush it on, just like you would painting, and then cover that, and you can easily see it because obviously it has a sheen to it, and the rest of it doesn't. And then that was left for maybe, I don't know, half an hour or so. I can't quite remember. And then he'd mix up another amount. I can't remember if he did 3 mixes, and he slowly built this layer of polymer up. I think Mark will explain it to you. One was like a base coat, the next was the base of the polymer, and then the next one made the polymer. So I think there was 3 coats. I can't quite remember, but it didn't look. Yeah, I mean, he proportioned it all out before he came. So I think the really clever bit is he would send proportioned amounts out to people. So there's a ready-made mix, and it's like a recipe. It'll all go together, and he'll give you how to do it, which wasn't difficult. And I think the clever bit is just what's in it. He's obviously making the chemicals, and he's got the chemical background of how it all goes together. So it's just repeating that process then, which I presume you would give training to the people who were applying it.
It's fascinating when it was somebody who, well, yes, it's important that he had the background knowledge about the product, but you would imagine to come up with something like that, his knowledge would have been more on what goes on in the sea and how the propeller reacts with the sea.
Yeah, I think he spends a lot of time on the sea himself, so it is a bit of a passion of his, and I think that's where that comes from. So yeah, I mean, I suppose chemistry is just if you've learnt it well and to the level that he's learnt it at, it's just chemistry. It's beyond me, but that's been his life, and he's been in the industry doing this on large scales, like you said, with making toothpaste and all sorts of different recipes.
But the old saying up here, Dave, on that one is each to their own.
Yeah, he's an expert in his field. Yeah.
Were you skeptical before seeing it in the water?
Just more open-minded. I was just like, well, I just like a lot of fishermen, I would give it a go. What's the harm in giving it a go? You can't do any harm. So, if it didn't work, it wouldn't have worked. You know what I mean? I would say, well, I won't do it again. So there was no loss to me. Price it's going to go out at eventually. I don't know if he said a price, but I definitely think, I mean, if you're saving 4% on a week, for us, I mean, at the moment the fuel price has gone bananas, so we'll be spending probably £10,000 on fuel. So 4% is a big saving at the moment. But but normal going, if the price is around that 60 pence a litre mark, you're saving 4%. If you're spending £6,000, it's 4% of that. So it's a weekly saving. It's a few hundred quid each week, isn't it?
Absolutely. The saying goes, every little helps.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with my combined savings that I've made with the Ecomodus and the propeller coating, I went to see my accountant late last year, and she had noticed through the account. She said, "Oh, you're saving on fuel." She said, "I can see it through the liters you're taking," and I was like quietly impressed because she's one of those accountants who really likes to get into the numbers, and I was like, "Yeah." There's a reason for it, because she always asks, like, is there a reason for it? She likes to know because she's found it. I was like, yeah, there is. So I told her, and I was quite impressed she spotted it actually, but I was quite pleased that she did because I'd never told her, I never pre-warned her, but so she had seen it, and I was like, well, it just reinforced it, backed up that what me and Alec were seeing, that the accountants had seen it as well. So we'd seen it from a value point of view.
My response to that, Dave, would be don't give up your accountant either. That's the signs of a good one, because my goodness, for them to spot that, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was. I was pretty impressed. Yeah, she impressed me. You know, she's just one of them girls. She likes to get to an answer. She's quite scary, actually. You sit in front of her. She's only a little girl, but God, she's done ask you some questions. I was thinking, I pay you. You're not paying me. Yeah, no, she's good.
Did at any time you think this might be just another expensive experiment?
No, no. I mean, because it was a trial. You know, obviously I had nothing to lose on it.
Okay.
So if he had come, well, it depends what they asked for. You know, I suppose it was around the sort of £500-600 mark. I'd been, yeah, well, I'd give it a go. Why not? You know, but like everything comes down to price at the end of the day, doesn't it? You know, you've got to pitch it right for people to experiment, and you know, different people have a different level of expenditure on fuel. You know, so for air vessels, something like air vessel, and working your way up through the size of the fleet to beam trawlers, you know, more higher fuel usage vessels, towing vessels like us, then spending money in this area is well worth it. You know, if you're more static gear type vessels, yeah, maybe fuel's not so big a consideration. It's more about sort of, you know, your gear that you got in the water and your bait that you've got to put in the gear. So, you know, so for towed vessels, I'd say it's certainly you want to go out and think about it but whatever you do, if you want to measure it, just do a little bit of work beforehand, you know.
And excuse this question, it's maybe showing my lack of experience or knowledge, but I would take it when you talk about percentages, bigger engine burning more fuel, the savings would be bigger as well. Is that
Yeah,
right?
without a doubt. Yeah, no, if you've got a bean trawler
Yeah.
burning, you know, twice as much as what I burn, obviously they're going to get twice the saving on it. You know, so they wouldn't be that much bigger of a propeller than we are. Yeah, they're gonna definitely get a saving. So yeah, I'd encourage anyone to do it. I'm always surprised that more people don't get involved with these with like you looking at these things. People do, but I'm just surprised it's not more popular. You know, everything that we've experimented within fuel saving so far has been a winner for us. And I'm just surprised it's not more popular. And it just doesn't just win with the fuel saving. We are 100% not emitting what we used to emit. And it's not that I'm looking to save the planet, but I just think at some point, if we went to build a boat, or for being forced down the road of having AdBlue at some point aboard the boat, there's a solution on the shelf. It doesn't cost you. It saves you money when you put it aboard the boat. You know, I wish the MCA would support these initiatives more and push them through as an alternative to some of the ridiculous things that the industry's being made to fit. These catalytic converters that are being fitted on boats are enormous. They're very costly to fit and to run. Yeah, so the Ecomotus is about the size of a computer, and you just top it up with a bit of water, and it saves you 10% on the fuel. It's a no-brainer. It's just I don't know why we're fumbling around in the dark.
Well, I don't think our governments are helping. Well, certainly in Scotland, they're not helping us much because they're not giving very much assistance.
No, I mean there are grants out there for. I don't know about the propeller coating product, but there's no reason why it couldn't be. It could fall under that category. Why not? But the Ecomotus does. So you know, there are grants out there to get 50% off. And
Yeah.
we've just obviously taken our engine apart. We've done a complete rebuild on their engine. Alec did that with Brian, the engineer, and you know it was in very, very good condition. In some respects, we could have gone on a lot longer, but you know we wanted to do a planned maintenance because we didn't want to be held up for an unscripted one. But yeah, in no way does any of this affect the engine materials inside the engine. Nothing. So we've proved that. So that was always a little concern for me when I first put the Ecomotus aboard the boat. Will it harm the engine? And as time went on, we knew it wasn't. But to actually take the engine apart, to see right inside the engine and have a good look at it, and find that in actual fact it's even Cat for Fittings come down and said that's a very clean engine for what hours it's done. And we'd already gone 50% over the hours that we should have done for the overhaul. So, yeah, that just says it's the right product, and it's not going to do any harm.
Yeah. The crazy thing with when we say about government assistance, that's down with you, but north of the border in Scotland. If you went to the government and you were going to make a 50% energy saving in your house, they would be right with you. With your boat, they're not.
No, I think we do need to support business more in this country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in every way. We're getting hit in every direction at the moment, through taxation, through lack of support.
Yeah.
I think we just got to grind it out and hope for a change. So.
That's the SNP government who would probably tell us we're far right when they're ultra left.
Yeah, well, there we go. It's, that sort of like the sensible people are in power at the moment, and the people with any common sense are just keeping the country afloat, really. And we've got the lunatics running the asylum.
That's right. Obviously, you notice a measurable difference with fuel consumption. What about the RPM at cruising speed, vibration, noise and cavitation, stuff like that?
Well, we haven't. Obviously, we can do less revs because we're getting more out of the fuel because we're burning the fuel more efficiently. But there's no difference that I've noticed anything. The boat is, she's a good quiet boat, really towing, and not any changes that we've made haven't made any alterations with anything, with any machinery noise or anything like that. The only thing is we know we're just running cleaner, saving fuel, and we're more efficient.
And have you been weeks at sea and inspected? What did it look like compared to maybe uncoated prop at the same stage?
Well, we do keep our camera clean. We get a diver to come down every now and again just to make sure the weed stays off it. And I was at sea looking, because you can't see it in the harbour, because the harbour is obviously, there's a river actually running into Newlyn, which keeps the harbour the water's a bit dirty. But when we get out of the harbour, we can see the propeller, and I think it's looking cleaner than it would do. I pretty much got the slip every August, so we're at March now, aren't we? So. Yeah, it's looking cleaner to me than it would otherwise do in previous years.
Has it taken any knocks, rope, debris, or grounding?
Yeah, we've had a couple of we had a rope go in a few weeks ago, but it was only a small one, and I haven't noticed any difference in performance or anything like that. The rope only just went on the outer blades, and it was only in there for a minute, if that. But we haven't had anything knock it or anything like that. I think we'll tell when we got the slip in April how it's performing, whether the polymers come off or whether it's still on. But I would say at the moment it's still on because we're still getting that performance of extra speed, and we've still got the fuel saving, and it's still looking clean from the camera point of view. So I'm hoping, I'm pretty sure it'll be all right. But it'll be interesting to get down there and inspect it.
What like a seabed or a bottom have you got there? Do you know how it would cope with sand or abrasive seabed?
Yeah, I think you're right to ask that. Let's see, Newlyn's a bit like hard mud, and we don't really kick up a lot of dirt and that. So I'm not in sandy areas pushing sand from propeller. But yeah, somewhere like, say, St. Ives, for instance, quite a very sandy harbour, quite a coarse sand. Yeah, you do wonder how that would affect it. The answer to that is you'd have to try it, give it a go. I just don't know. I mean, most of the time boats are at sea, aren't they? So it's only if you're driving them hard up the beach,
Yeah.
that you're ever going to have a problem like that. And most people don't do that.
Do you feel fouling reduced compared to previous season?
This year, no, I'd say it's been a warmer winter for us. So the boat's looking a little bit weedier around the hull than it would normally. That's why I'm probably going to got the slip in April, because I don't think I'm going to get to September, because the winter's been so warm that I think we're going to have higher weed growth this year.
That would make it even better than if you're noticing that in the hull this year.
Yeah, if the propeller is still clean, but the hull is getting dirtier this year, then yeah, that's another win, because obviously the propeller would go at the same pace as the hull, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. If parts of it chips, does that compromise the rest?
I don't know the answer to that yet. I think I'm going to have to go through this year and then give it another coat. I'm quite confident to give it another coat this year. For what I've seen from it, I'll be doing it again. And I just think use over time will give us an idea of what it's doing. But because it's like a polymer, I presume Mark made it like that. So it does take that little bit of, if it's going to have a bit of a nudge, or it will just go back to its normal self. I presume if he made it a hard surface, that it would be more prone to damage. So maybe that's why it's a polymer. I don't know. You have to ask him.
Wow. Yeah. We'll have him back.
Yeah.
Has it genuinely extended the time between prop cleans or lift outs? Because that's obviously money.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously going to lift the boat out because I've got to do everything else on the boat. I've got to do the hull, and I've got to do the coolers mainly. I've got inboard coolers on the boat, and they're like a little trap for mussels and weeds. It's surprising how weedy they get. And if I don't do them, the engine will run too hot. So that's the only reason I'm doing it. So I'm not taking the boat out for the propeller, but it will be, like you say, interesting when we do take her out. What condition the propeller's in? I'll get some pictures, and I'll make sure everyone has a good view of them. And if it's I'll write up my findings really.
Yeah. Over a full season, where have you seen the benefit?
Consumption, and then just saving a little bit of time because you get in between the ground quicker. Obviously, we're steaming in quicker. So yeah, you're saving time. You're steaming about quicker, and then obviously more efficient when you're towing.
Would you be happy spending money on that if you found that you need to, you see it value?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to do it again. No, I'll be coating it again. Give it another year. That's for sure. Sometimes a big part of you thinks, well, let's not give it a coat just to double check everything we've seen. But I'm pretty confident everything I've seen is it's definitely made a difference. I'm pretty confident of that. So I'll be doing it again.
Great. What would make you stop using it? Who would you recommend it to?
Well, I'd recommend it to anyone who's doing towed fishing. Any beamer, seine netter, trawler. I'd say anyone's worth doing. We've seen a difference. It was not going to do any harm, nothing at all. So there was nothing that would stop me using it other than if it didn't work, but it does work. So no, there's no reason why I would not use it.
Indeed. And I mean, obviously, you built your boat. You've got your boat built up in Scotland here, so you know the area. Do you feel that for maybe, I don't know if there'll be all that much difference, but colder waters, different grounds and things, would it make any difference in the far north of Scotland to the far south of England?
No, because the polymer is making the propeller more slippy and more grippy for some reason. I don't know how that works, but it won't matter. The temperature of the water, I don't think makes any difference. I think anyone who tries it in Scotland will see the same as us. We've got the same boats she's built in Scotland. There's many boats like ours up in Scotland, and I with no doubt that they'll see the same performance as we have.
Okay. Just going to ask you if picture the scene. If you were local bar and a fisherman asked you, what would you tell him?
The fisherman asked me about it.
When it's at the bar, you could include, well, just buy me another drink.
Yeah. No, I was at the bar with another fisherman. I just say, just get down the slip and get the stuff on your boat. It works. And then buy me a drink next year when you know it's working.
In other words, look, just go and do it.
Yeah, just go and do it. Yeah, it does what it says on the tin. It works.
And obviously, as you've said, you would invest your own money to do that. Now, knowing the benefits of it.
Yeah, it's going to be well worth it. No, I won't be hesitating to do that. Yeah, so hopefully it'll all be set up and there'll be people there with training who will be applying it. So if that's the case, then we'll be doing it.
Is there anything that would make you stop using it?
No, not unless they get the mix wrong, and it doesn't work. But I'm sure they'll be trained well, And it didn't look that difficult to do. I'm sure if I was shown once, I could have done it myself. I think the only thing is you got to clean your propeller up. So you got to be you either you get someone in the yard to do it or you do it yourself like I did, and so you'll be a day by the time you've jet sprayed it and then got the grinder out and give it a good polish. I was using a sander, so give it a good polish, get it as clean as you can. It's a day's work. Well, that's for air prop. It's a big old prop. My arms and shoulders are aching at the end of the day, but yeah, it did me good. It'll keep fit. Yeah.
Did you think at any time before that it was just another expensive experiment?
Yeah, when I was cleaning the prop, yeah. I hope this works. I put a lot of effort in.
So you're not giving Mark all the credit then?
No, he complimented me on how shiny I'd made my prop. So
brilliant.
I even took a photo of it. I got a selfie with me and my prop. So I worked hard to get that prop. So I was all day. You asked Paul Toms, I was all day doing it.
It's funny at times, Dave, many a person would be wanting to get that photo beside their favourite footballer or film star, and you're happy to have it beside your prop.
Yeah, too right. Yeah. I don't think every fisherman, they love their boats. You know what I mean? It's their second wife, isn't it? So
well,
any photo opportunity with the boat is good.
My view on that one tells me how much a fisherman likes his boat. He'll be talking about it, and he refers to it as she. If a fisherman talks about it or him, they don't have any passion for their boat.
No. Well, boats have personalities, I'm sure of it. Every different boat that me and Alec and Dad had a different way about it, had a different feel, a different personality about it. And, and when you build a boat, it's like having a child, really. It's like, it's a big deal. It was a great thing to do. And you do feel, I feel closer to this boat than any other boat I've had because we built her, and the ideas that we had went into her, and it was a privilege to do it, and it's a privilege to work her. And you, the boat looks after you, and you look after the boat, and that's what it is to be a fisherman.
Definitely, and it's never one way. Looking at it, no, it would be a much better world we live in if more people took that attitude.
Yeah, well, a lot of fishermen are, a bit like farming. It's just a way of life. It's not just a job, is it?
Definitely.
It's far bigger than that.
Yeah, Dave, do you have a social media presence, and where can listeners follow you online?
Yeah, I think I'm on most things like you are, Jim. I do a bit of TikToking now. I've just got down with the kids doing that, but I'm not particularly good at it. I'm not as good as John O.V. God, he's Mr. TikTok these days. His trawler and tails, fantastic. And we're all learning Doric as well because of him. And yeah, so he's Mr. TikTok. So I'm on Instagram. I like Instagram and Facebook, on LinkedIn, Twitter. We've got like a whole suite, isn't it, these days to follow. So it's nice to keep in touch with everybody. I like posting pictures, interacting with other fishermen, and yeah, it's a good thing. If it's used right, it's a good thing, isn't it? We've got podcasts these days. We all really enjoy listening to your podcast, and
thank you.
Really accessible. It's really just accessible. You can pop it on when you're just making tea or something, can't you? And you got 10 minutes and listen away.
Yeah, I've quite a number of people tell me the different ways. They'll be maybe steaming out to sea. Somebody will be driving, so they'll put it on as they're driving, or that. So no, it's great. I enjoy it. I have to say, David, I do enjoy it. Meeting and talking to some really interesting people, like over this. It's fascinating to hear that even still there's people coming up with new ideas and adapting them to the industry. That's what keeps us going.
Yeah, and it's good to have that showcased. It really is.
Yeah. Well, I'll thank you, David, and we'll fold up. That was great. Looking forward to getting it out. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thanks, Jim. Good to see you.